Has an avoidant ever played this game with you? Let's say, for example, an avoidant who you are dating says something hurtful or wildly inappropriate and hangs up on you while you guys are talking on the phone. But for some reason, you spend the rest of your day calling, texting, and begging them for forgiveness for a fight that they provoked in the first place. When you panic and run back to people who have disrespected you, well, let me ask you, has that behavior ever gotten you the respect or the kind of relationship that you want? I'll bet no, because it's never worked for me either. Hello friends, my name is Maria, and for almost 20 years, this is what my dating life looked like, crawling back to people I thought I needed, because I had never learned how to give myself what I needed. And perhaps what you need is to try something different. How about if they hang up on you and you don't call them back, but then when you do talk to them or see them again, see if they are willing to talk. And then if they agree to talk and it seems like you guys have everything all worked out, observe their behavior over the following week. Does the reconciliation bring you two back together, or do they start playing games? Now all of a sudden they're busy, they're distant. Here's what I really want you to pay attention to. If you continue to respect their boundaries and offer communication, and then at the same time they still disrespect you, emasculate you, and stonewall you, well, I'm not saying that you need to change, but you may seriously want to consider making a change. There are so many ways fearful people play games to avoid intimacy, and if you are ready to start disqualifying the losers, then grab a bottle of nail polish and let's talk. Let's go over a common scenario that I know has happened to me. It's probably happened to you, and it's also happened to a gentleman who I will call Tim. Now, this is a scenario that avoidants often use, especially in the first few months of dating, to sort of keep you off balance and keep you guessing about where you stand in the relationship. Now, this man, Tim, told me everything seemed to be going great with a woman who I will call Jillian. And Jillian was the one who originally pursued Tim, by the way. But anyway, everything was going great with Jillian until she went away on a trip with her girlfriends and all of a sudden got quiet and distant. And yes, she is on vacation. But the part that was concerning is she didn't tell Tim when she was coming back, but then when she got back, he didn't even know she was back until he hadn't heard from her, so he reached out to her. Now, I know if I was dating someone that I was really into, especially if they had pursued me, my feelings would be hurt if that guy got back from a vacation and didn't even bother to tell me that he was back in town. It is pretty messed up. And I know that to some people this would be an immediate red flag, but here's why people like me and Tim and maybe you, this is why we get confused. Because even though Tim felt a little kick in his gut when he found out she came back into town without telling him, when he called Jillian, she acted like she was happy to hear from him, and she agreed to go out on another date with him. Now, if you can imagine, the reason Tim was on the phone with me was because Jillian's lackadaisical motivation, well, it kind of felt like she could wait to see him after she got back into town. Well, this was only the first red flag in a relationship that ended up with Tim being reeled in and discarded twice. So yeah, he was understandably beside himself. Now, during our phone call, when Tim was rehashing this story with me, both Tim and I immediately knew there was something wrong when Jillian wasn't self-motivated to see him as soon as she was back in town. But here's the difference. Tim had never been in this situation before, so at that time in his life, he pushed forward with Jillian. On the other hand, I myself have unfortunately been on the receiving end in this same scenario. It's the avoidant lack of effort, and more than once. These days, I would have recognized this little game immediately, and I would not have pushed forward. It doesn't make me any better than Tim. I've just learned not to give in to the games. Because now I know people who do this kind of stuff, they have a pattern of doing these things, and they do it on purpose to maintain control and create distance. This woman, Jillian, she is not dumb or forgetful, quite the opposite. And I find that a lot of gentlemen I talk to, they are beguiled by attractive and intelligent women. They talk about how smart these women are in glowing terms, and it is certainly a compliment. But come on, if Jillian is smart, she knows how much Tim likes her. Even if he didn't directly say it, she fully understands that he would want to see her as soon as she got back. And there is no other reason for a woman to not, she just omits that she happens to be back in town. What other reason for it could there be other than creating distance and playing games? It's only because of my dating experience that I can confidently sit here and tell you that the day I sat down, painted my nails, and began going over the patterns of people who care, and patterns of people who pull stunts like this, that look, here's the conclusion. If you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend who is just as excited or as invested in the relationship as you, they will absolutely want to see you when one of you gets back from vacation. If they can wait, they're probably gonna walk. I'm going to do a whole nother video on this, but that is one thing, it's a phrase that I started repeating to myself. If they can wait, they can walk. And please do not accidentally confuse this with, if they don't want to see you every single day, they're just not that into you. I don't think that's true at all. I believe that in more secure relationships with people who are more confident in themselves, they've built a life, hobbies, they have friends, they're going to naturally have healthier boundaries. And you can spot this in someone who maybe they do want to hang out only once or twice a week, but you can tell by their energy that they can't wait to see you. You are a highlight of their week. They're looking forward to it, and they're not making you feel like they're doing you a favor by seeing you. They might not cancel plans they've already made with friends for you, but they're going to see you 1 or 2 days after that, very shortly after that, and they can't wait. This is what healthy, secure boundaries look like. Again, this is not the same as someone that you've been dating and they say they can't hang out with you because they're coming down with something and you haven't heard from them in a couple of weeks. And then when you ask them how they're doing, it turns out, oh yes, they were feeling much better like a week ago. But even though they were feeling better, they still weren't really asking you if you wanted to go out and do something. See, that's not a good sign. It means they're either not as invested in the relationship, they're playing games, they're trying to create distance, or maybe they're just not that interested. They can wait to see you. And if they can wait, there's a good chance they're gonna walk. All right, well, let's take the previous scenario between Tim and Jillian where someone's coming back into town, and let's go over it using advice that is commonly given from relationship coaches telling anxious people how to deal in this situation. So a little while ago, I saw an advice clip from a well-known dating and relationship coach. He gave this same scenario as an example. So yeah, I'm sure it happens to a lot of us. He did reverse the genders. He said that if a man came back from a trip and he didn't text you to plan a date right away, he says it means the guy's not invested enough in the relationship, which I definitely agree with. But here's where the coach and I differ on the advice. The coach says the best thing to do in this scenario is you tell this guy that you're busy, even if it's a lie, and tell him that you aren't available until like Thursday of the following week. Now, I actually get the point that this coach is making. We should not reward people's indifference towards us with our immediate attention, but I also live in reality. Raise your hand if you have ever been able to successfully execute this strategy. If someone that you were excited about blew you off for a couple of days and your anxious attachment wound was all over the board and tensions were high, and then suddenly they texted you to go out with them that night, raise your hand if you would ever be able to wait to see them. Anybody? I didn't think so, and that's okay. I would have never been able to do it either. I absolutely would have dropped everything, even if I had plans that night, because a text from them would have felt so validating, and it would have felt like such a relief at that time. And if you were able to hold off and do that and say that you're busy and white knuckle it and lie and tell them you couldn't see them for a week, it was probably a game that you were coerced into playing. And it's probably a game that didn't make you feel very good. If they seem like they can still wait to see you after a time apart, there is a good chance they're gonna walk. I know, I keep saying this, but it's something I kept telling myself, and it's a phrase that has really served me in finding people in dating who were actually serious about a long-term relationship with me. If they are self-centered people who are jerking you around or being rude at the very least, or they're not interested or they're not invested, that's what it is. And no amount of playing phone games is ever going to change that. Because like I said, even if you white knuckle it and wait the week and a half, we are still sweeping the fact that this guy is not that excited to see you right under the rug. And that is the most important part. Couples don't always take trips together, but I know this much. Your girlfriend or boyfriend should want to see you. And that's not a test, and it's not a game. It's just a fact. First of all, it's not a good sign if you have to think this much about the confusion over one text that someone you're dating sends you. And it's not a good sign if you have to analyze it that much. And if you're overanalyzing someone's every text, they are either encouraging you to spin out with their hot and cold confusing behavior, or you might not be in the most secure place mentally because maybe being discarded in the past really shook up your confidence. Insecurity resulting from trauma does not discriminate. It doesn't care what college you went to, how tall you are, what car you drive, how much you weigh, or how good you look. Welcome to the other half, where we know attraction is not just about looks. We also need to take care of the inner half. Look inside at the behavior that does not make you feel strong and confident. What is not working for you? What behavior pattern gets you the opposite of what you want? And what pattern do other people have in their behavior that brings out the behavior you don't find attractive in yourself? You would be amazed how uncomplicated dating looks when you simply do less. No more over-functioning and getting sucked into the games. What we should be doing is recognizing that these people are not on the same level as we are, and we take a step back, not to play games, but to gain clarity. Because now you know, you might be able to make them anxious temporarily. But when we feel like we have to play games to get people to do things or feel a certain way, we only win temporarily, and it's not even a win. In the long run, you will never win when you play games with people who, through their own traumatic experiences, have trained themselves not to care if they lose. And someone who is okay with losing you shouldn't even be allowed on your team. You'll be too busy playing games and trying to defeat each other instead of trying to defeat the monsters that will inevitably come up in life. And your mental health bar will always be in the red. And it's time for some full hearts in your life. If you want more on the subject of avoidant games, I will put that video right here. My name is Maria Adriana. You did not have to live my life, but I certainly hope you can learn something from it. As always, thank you for visiting the other half.